What did he say? Better had said good things. First, thank you, Luke. Thank you, 5 minutes. We met, I guess, via Twitter, really. And I met your partner, Victor, in person in New York. But if you like this presentation, then you like their work. And if you don't like the presentation, then you don't like their work. Blame them. Luca's studio helped me reconfigure everything and gave me a new look and feel on my website, Colonna.org, and themonsterinyourhead.com. It's really a pleasure to be here, and I'm really actually kind of overwhelmed with gratitude. To look out in this room and see so many faces here, and see the room bursting at the seams and it being a little hot because there's so many people in here, that's a good thing. A couple of things to talk about before I actually get into the presentation. The first is sort of two warnings that I take. You guys have heard me make these jokes too many times, so too bad. The first is that I'm a Buddhist, and I may make references to Buddhism. I was born a Catholic. I'm an Italian-American from Brooklyn. And so if I make references there, I'll try to explain what's going on. And the second is, as I said, I'm from Brooklyn, and I will curse. If you don't like it, fuck you. That's a joke. We can laugh. Come on. Come on. You know, when you speak in front of Germans, any Germans in the room? When you speak in front of Germans, they all sit like this. Yes, Herr Doctor. Yes, Herr Doctor. And I'm like, come on, let's get going. They're very scared of me. She's scared of me. No, just kidding. So we get started. First things first. I can already tell that there are people using their devices, which is great. Exactly. She's tweeting. That's perfect. So if you're going to tweet, this is my handle. You're more than happy to do this, and you know this joke already. And if you're going to tweet, this is the hashtag. $5, $5 US. For anybody who can figure that out. Jerry's the greatest speaker ever. We should start a petition to get him to do a TED Talk. Yeah! What are we going to talk about today? Well, I'll be honest with you, I gave this talk once already, earlier this week. But after spending the morning with some local entrepreneurs and Luca at lunch, I decided to switch things up a little bit this afternoon, and then I took a nap. And I added one little bit to the agenda. So here goes. First thing we're going to do is we're going to actually talk about what it is to be an entrepreneur. And in talking about that, I actually want to have a conversation about what does it mean to be in business in Croatia. Ooh, scary. Right? He's already shaking his head. No way, you cannot talk about that. Okay, I'm from Brooklyn, we talk about everything. Then we're going to talk about being a failure. And then we're going to talk about failure. So you want to leave? It's okay. And most importantly, we're going to talk about dealing with both fear and failure. I had a warning. I have another warning I have to give. I have a superpower. You know, Superman can fly, Batman has his gadgets. Get ready. I make people cry. As God is my witness, is it true? Last night, in fact, I met somebody for dinner. She's been wanting to talk to me for a while. I was about 5 minutes late for dinner. I walked in, she was already crying. I wasn't even there. I charged her anyway. Here's my bill. What's an entrepreneur? No, don't call him. What's an entrepreneur? What's the first thing that occurs to you? Anybody? Yeah? No? Courage and adventure. Go to the head of the class. That's a great, great comment. I was warned, by the way, that Croats might not be willing to speak up. Is that true? Yeah. Because we're afraid of being wrong, right? You're going to pretend to be from Brooklyn today. And you're not going to worry about being wrong. Okay? So shout out. What else? Well, I won't call on anybody. That might be easier. What's an entrepreneur? What words occur to you? Stupid, did you say? Okay. Stubborn. Crazy. Risk taker.
Passion.
What is it?
Passion.
Passion. Dreamers. By the way, I think every one of these words, stupid, stubborn, dreamer, passion, they're all synonyms. So you know that I was a former venture capitalist, that this is my 5th career, I can't hold a job, I'm a failure, hurrah, right? What's the word? I'll never pronounce this right. Buddhist. That's me. I'm terrible. I work mostly with entrepreneurs, although not exclusively. And I'm a coach. Now, I'm not a coach like your football coach, although sometimes I can yell at you. I'm a coach more like a therapist, only I give homework. And I think about the present day more than about your terrible parenting or your terrible childhood. And in that work, I work a lot with entrepreneurs. And these are some of the things that I think that they are. They're fearless. Doesn't mean that they are without fear. This is nuanced. It means they act despite the fact that they are afraid. Does that resonate? They do it anyway. They're impatient with the status quo. Right? They start to get ideas. They're standing online at the post office, and boy, do I pick on the post office a lot? I pick on the post office a lot. I hate the post office in every country. Anybody here from the postal service? Leave. They get impatient with the status quo. They often ask why things can't be better. You know that feeling? This is a phrase I often use. They're pathologically optimistic. And this is a sort of a funny combination. Pathologically meaning they're kind of delusionally crazy and sick. But they actually tend to believe that things will work out in the end. And they challenge and inspire us. They ask us to do things differently. Most important, this may be a little controversial in the Balkans. They want to make the world better. Now, I have spoken all over the world. I have met entrepreneurs all over the world. And contrary to what I think most people in many countries believe, entrepreneurs are not in it for the money. Because if they were, they would really be crazy. Because most entrepreneurs are one step away from being broke. Most entrepreneurs are in it because they want to make the world a better place. Now, how they want to make the world a better place varies. It may be a new little app to make it easier to call a cab or a taxi. Generally speaking, they look at the world and they say it kind of sucks, and wouldn't it be better if? Come on in, take a seat. You're late. Do you have your late notice? You know, the people who are latest, they're calling you the most. I want to tell you a story. I've said before that I'm a Buddhist. And in April 2010, I did my morning ritual. I get up in the morning, I make a little tea, take out my journal, I journal, meditated. Before actually going to the gym, which is what I usually do, I went online and I started checking the news. And I saw a news story from Tibet. There was an earthquake in a town called Yushu. And it struck me, because one of my teachers was born in Yushu. So I read the story. You know how you read the news and you see horrible thing happens and you go, bad, and you go to the next story? You know, kind of, it's what we do. Only I did. And I read the story. 7.8 earthquake on the Richter scale, 7.8. Tiny little town. And I had a crazy thought. I have to go and help. I've never been to Tibet before. I've never done anything like this before. Never done any disaster relief before. Nothing. I immediately started contacting friends that I have in Tibet. Happened to reach one pretty quickly. He said, I'm on my way right now. Even the army can't get in. The town is at about 9,000 meters. The soldiers can't breathe because the oxygen's so thin. 100,000 residents, and as it turned out, 85% of the buildings were destroyed. The official government estimate was 2,000 people died. The local nonprofits estimated it at 25,000. Imagine if 25% of the population of Zagreb was wiped out. I had to do something. So I spent the summer and I raised 50,000 US dollars. And in August of that year, I and 4 other Tibetans drove 3 tractor trailers from Chengdu, a city of 10 million people, past army checkpoints and past police checkpoints, into Yushu, totally unofficial, totally crazy, totally entrepreneurial. And we rolled into town with tents and solar water heaters and solar lighting and blankets and food. Because 5 months after the earthquake, there were still dead bodies in the streets. And I remember being so overwhelmed. I mean, I'm not Superman. I may have superpowers, but I ain't Superman. But I remember feeling overwhelmed by what was going on. And I remember coming across a man whose femur was broken and sticking out for 5 months. And I knew I had to do something. Something beyond just this one thing. And my karma, my destiny, is not to be an earthquake relief worker. I help entrepreneurs. That's what I do. So we created an enterprise loan program to help local entrepreneurs make their world a better place. So we helped the Shambhala Cooperative of Batam County, whose mission is what? They're dedicated to improving the living conditions of people in their county. What do? They're a cooperative for drying mushrooms. They gave them a $2,000 loan. And they employed 17 people in a region where people live on 12 cents a day, 12 US cents a day. The level of ultra poor is $1 a day. This is Lasang, and this is his family, and this is the Christmas card he sent me. People who work with ultra poor know that if you lift one person out of poverty, you lift 4 additional people out of poverty. For $2,000 US and some mushroom drying equipment, we lifted over 35 people out of poverty. Not a bad return on investment, I'd say. Lasang is an entrepreneur. I didn't realize I was going to tell that much detail. You guys okay? I like to point to him because Lasang is not what we think of. He's not Mark Zuckerberg. He's not Bill Gates. He's not rapacious. He looks at the world and he says, where are there opportunities? What needs to be done? What needs to be done? Anybody from this morning's presentations we were talking? Where are the entrepreneurs from this morning? Remember my curve? Okay, what is this curve? Shout it out. I know you don't feel comfortable with your English. Don't worry about it. Nobody's going to make fun of you. It's a cycle, right? It's what happens kind of in life. To those of us in the room over 50, we know what it feels like on this side of the curve. Right? The joke finally made it in. We're all a little slow. But this is also like a product cycle, right? You launch a product. If you're lucky, it starts to grow. At some point, people say, enough already. We've done it. Right? Who still uses their iPod? Yeah. You still use it? Dude, what are you doing? Right. Right? Every product, every company has a life cycle. And what happens a lot in business is people freak out about this curve. They get upset. Especially when a company gets built and it's really strong and powerful and it's an incumbent company. And right about here, the managing directors start to get really, really nervous. Right? You've worked for that company. And they say, oh shit, what's going to happen? Is this going to fall off before my pension kicks in? Right? We've all worked for them. You know what an entrepreneur does? Oh! Wait a minute. You mean life is filled with curves? You mean there's multiple opportunities? Google search, YouTube, Gmail, iPod, iPhone, iPad. We have an old saying in entrepreneurial businesses in the United States. It's a notion of creative destruction. In Hinduism, they have a god named Shiva. Does anybody know what Shiva is? Come on, the people who do yoga. Shiva, the destroyer. Yes, right? Destroyer and what? The spirit of creativity. Yes. See, in Hinduism, destruction and creativity are one and the same. This is what an entrepreneur sees the world as. Every time there's a decline, there's what? Another climb. Every time there's something going down, this is an interesting moment. Now, by the way, this could be fat incumbent company, Walmart, the Mercator of America. That was a joke. Come on, you can laugh. See? Croats can laugh. Amazon. What's next? In fact, I call this the what's next curve. What's next? What's next? Croatia's had a hard time economically, right? 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 What are you going to do about it? What are you going to do about it? Holy shit, my man. You're out of control. You're acting like you're from Brooklyn. Calm down. So this is the way entrepreneurs think. What's the opportunity? In the midst of a crisis is opportunity. I know it's scary. I know it's scary. And that's why you're all here. That's why we actually have standing room only. Whoever tells you that entrepreneurialism is dead in Croatia, turn around and take a picture. Look at this. Everybody turn around and look at this room. Look at this room right now. Yeah, the media guys are sitting here, yeah, bullshit. They're all a bunch of corrupt. They're in it for the money. Right? Because you're like swimming in wealth. You've got that Swiss bank account, right?
Do I look like?
Yeah. See, that's the thing. We were saying this before. The Vulcan way. I've learned a lot about the Vulcan way. Be suspicious of rich people, right? But be suspicious of people who failed and are poor too, because you know. Easy. What are we afraid of?
Failure.
How did I know that? I'm like superpower number 2. I'm pressing. How did I know that every entrepreneur is going to shout out failure? Lucas said, I'm a coach. I work with entrepreneurs. I remember one time a few months ago, I started working with a new client. I started working with a new client. And she's a nice Muslim girl from Lebanon who went to MIT. Who's married a nice Jewish boy from Queens, New York. She's got guts. She's tough. We're on the phone in our first conversation, and I interrupted her and I said, I know, you're feeling overwhelmed. You're feeling like a failure for the first time in your life. You're feeling like you're doing things that you're totally unprepared for. She said, yes, how did you know? Because you all feel that way. You all feel incompetent. You all feel like imposters. That people are going to figure out, right? I'm looking at the entrepreneurs I met this morning. They're going to figure out you haven't a clue what you're doing. And oh my God, if you got to talk to an investor, they might actually figure out you don't know the answers to their questions, right? What do we think is going to happen if we fail? How about this one? How many people in the room walked away from a really good job to launch a business? She can barely raise her hand, she's so scared. Right. You raised your hand right there, right? No, the guy behind. Yeah, you raised your hand. What was the good job? Shout it out.
Director.
A director at some large company.
Local startup.
Well, so who walked away from like a steady, stable job that your parents would be happy from? Tell me about it.
I left Ericsson.
You left Ericsson? What, are you crazy?
That's what my father asked.
That's what your father asked, to do a startup. All right? Now, what if the startup fails and your father is proven right? Ooh, I just took all the air. Holy crap.
Avoiding him.
Right, I've all avoided him. Who's raised money from friends and family? How does it feel if you think you might fail now? Right. Yesterday in Slovenia, we were talking to one fellow whose parents lent him his money from their pension. Yeah. Scary. How about your spouse, who starts worrying about paying the bills? Yeah. You see what I mean when I say I have the superpower to make people cry? Who worries about becoming penniless? Yeah. You're right. You're fucked. Just kidding. How about this one? This seems to be particularly strong in places like Slovenia and Croatia. Everybody's going to make fun of you. How about this one? For companies that are successful. 5 minutes. I told Luca before that one of the problems with being my friend is I start to call on you when you're in the thing. When everybody starts to say, hey, it's really great that you raise money, that you talk to these investors, you must be a superstar. Look, we were talking about this at lunch, and he said, no, this is one of the reasons why I wanted to have a fail-con. I wanted to have a conversation about failure. Because here's a fact. 99% of all startups fail. Not 51%, the majority. 99%. So you look around the room. You're looking at a bunch of failures.
Joke, right?
6 out of 10 venture investments will fail in the first 2 years of receiving money. 2 more will fail within the next year. 2 will be zombies and maybe return a little bit of money. And 1 will return a significant amount of money.
Maybe.
What's that? You?
Maybe.
No, generally speaking, that's the statistics. About 1 in 10 or 1 in 12 venture-backed companies will return significant return. Do you know how much they return on average? 10 times their money. Do you understand why people are in the venture business? It's high risk, high reward. I remember when I first started being a venture capitalist, and the New York press was just as bad as the press around the world. They had no idea what venture capital investing was. And I remember I was actually on 60 Minutes one time. Do you know 60 Minutes is the television show? And Steve Croft, the journalist, leans in close to me, because he's nailed me, and he says, "You've invested mostly in unprofitable companies." And I said, "That's my job." If they were profitable, they wouldn't need my investment. Yeah, but that's the business. Hugh McCloud has a great little cartoon. Can you read it?
Yeah.
One guy says to the other, "But what if I fail?" The other guy says, "We all get to laugh at you." I think at your next fail-con, Luca, you should have a stand-up comedian. I think we have to learn how to laugh at neospec. Neospec. What? What did he say? Did he say something that I might understand? Because not every neospec, say the word,
Neospec?
is,
Neospec.
no, not every neospec is,
Boras.
say it again.
Boras.
Not every neospec is important. If I was embarrassed about anything, I wouldn't attempt to speak in foreign languages. In fact, the only class I failed 2 classes in life. Penmanship in 2nd grade and Spanish in 9th grade. Do not ask me to speak a language other than English. I can barely speak that. But I don't care. I try anyway. William James, the great 19th century philosopher, and arguably the father of American modern psychology, said, "We are humiliated only if we first invest our pride and sense of worth in a given achievement, and then do not reach it." I'm going to say this slowly again, because this is important. We are humiliated only if we first invest our pride or sense of self-worth in the thing we're trying to do, and then don't reach it. With no attempt, there can be no failure. And with no failure, no humiliation. With no no pause. No, or even worse, what's the Croatian word for humiliation? With no failure. Don't even try. Because they might laugh at me. I was preparing for this trip on Saturday, and I was telling my wife about some of the conversations, some of the talks I was doing. And I was saying, one of the talks was why entrepreneurship matters. And she looked at me quizzically. You have to talk about that? Now, she's not an entrepreneur, except she's only launched 4 nonprofits, 3 of which succeeded. 4, 3. No one laughs at her. In fact, I'd back her in a heartbeat. She's one of the smartest entrepreneurs I've ever met. Just wish she'd get a job. We fear failure because we have merged our sense of self with the effort. Remember before we were talking about the characteristics of an entrepreneur? That passion, that drive. I don't know if you do this in Croatia. We do this a lot in the United States, especially in New York. You know, you go to a dinner party, meet somebody for the first time. Hi. Hi.
Hi.
I'm Jeremy.
Yeah.
America, what do you do?
Entrepreneur.
See? You see? We do that, right? What do you do? What are we really asking when we ask that question? Who are you? Who are you? Who are you? We merge our sense of self with the thing we're trying to do. Okay, get ready. Here comes a little Buddhism. One of the most important tenets in Buddhism is non-attachment. Now, this is going to be a little nuanced English. There's 3 states: attachment, detachment, and non-attachment. Okay? Attachment means I really, really want that car. If I don't have that car, my life is over. Do I sound like a teenage kid? Right. And by the way, most capitalist systems are built on inducing attachment in humans. If you have the right deodorant, you might have sex. Right? It's attachment. Detachment, which is what people think we want, doesn't work. I don't care if I smell like crap. Guess what happens? You're a lonely person. Non-attachment is, today I don't smell so good, but I'm actually still a good person. Can you be non-attached to your entrepreneurial endeavor? Can you care just a little bit? Just dial it down just a little bit. Because if you do, failure isn't devastating. The potential of failure becomes a threat to our ego. You don't understand. Who was the guy this morning in the entrepreneurial conversations who almost got his PhD and then stopped? Right? Is he in the room? Check in. I almost got my PhD. I was almost a doctor. So if that entrepreneurial endeavor fails, guess what happens to him? Guess what happens to his ego? Refusing to acknowledge failure is often an attempt to avoid paralysis of shame. Many of us were raised or educated by people who tried to make us feel guilty when we made a mistake. Sound familiar? Hoping that the fear of being shamed would help us avoid future failure. How about this one? I'll give you something to cry about. Get back in there and study. Guess what? It didn't work. We cannot live fully and avoid mistakes. We can't live fully human lives and avoid mistakes. The only way to avoid the paralysis and pain of shame is when what we do is we narrow our lives to only things that we already know and deny that mistakes happen. Excuse me, I'm just going to go sit in the corner. A much more interesting presentation for my ego. I won't make any mistakes pronouncing Croatian words. My jokes won't fall flat if I stay in the corner. We feel failure, and then we fear its cousin, uncertainty. See, I can't tell you the number of entrepreneurs I've met who said, I have no problem being an entrepreneur if you just tell me what's going to happen next year. Right? Uncertainty is painful. It undermines our sense of safety. And it fuels our expectations of infallibility. We're supposed to know the future. Remember that business plan that you wrote? Even worse in my mind, is luck. Because everybody celebrates 5-minute success, but the fact is, you were lucky. There were some things that you did that were smart, but your timing was good, the circumstances were good, and if I told you tomorrow, repeat exactly what you did, you could. And there's a little voice in his head that tells him that. Or Victor's head. So what do we do? How do we make friends with these states? There's 3 things that I'm going to suggest, and then we're going to go into them. Making friends requires that we treat planning as a chance to be curious and inventive. Accept reality without giving up on the wish to change. That's that non-attachment. Understand the nature of change and impermanence. We're going to go through this. You know this feeling? I can't tell you the number of clients who call me up who are in complete crisis and want me to help them develop a plan. I just need to know what to do with my life. I just need a plan. I need a plan. She's laughing. I need a plan. I need a plan. Just if I had a plan, then I wouldn't be afraid. Who can read French? Shout it out. What does it say? And translate it? This is not a pipe. You want to say it in Croatian? Okay. What is it? And who gets the joke? It's a painting of a pipe. Right? It's not a pipe. And in the same way, this is not a business. In nearly 20 years as a professional investor, there's not a single company that I ever invested in, and I invested in over 100 different companies, that actually executed everything according to their plan. In fact, most of the biggest opportunities happened after the fact. My first big investment was a company called GeoCities. About 2/3 of this room were born after GeoCities was even invented, so the hell with it. It's a joke, guys, relax. GeoCities was a homepage hosting service, except that's not what it launched as. Its original business was an internet service provider called Beverly Hills Internet. And their big invention, their big innovation, was David Bonnet had secured the domain Beverly Hills 90210. You laugh, but that's what the business was, and that's what I invested in. And then it became GeoCities. Wasn't in the business plan, Compelled by our fears, compelled by our feelings, or those of us in the workplace, we feel we have to act. I gotta have a plan. I gotta know what I'm doing. We hide behind the plan because we're afraid. I could actually just summarize those last two slides by now. Remember that Buddhist concept of non-attachment. Okay? This is a Zen saying, which I think every business person should internalize. This being so, so what? Meaning, what are you going to do about it? I was working with a client company this week. The night before New Year's Day, New Year's Eve, they were told by a very important partner that they were making a small shift in the plan and 50% of their revenue disappeared overnight. Happy New Year! That wasn't in the plan. Anybody ever been impacted by a change in Google's algorithms for search? And get wiped out? Yeah. Small little change, big impact. To those more experienced managers, you know what I'm talking about, right? You go into the office in the morning, it's Monday morning, you have your little cup of coffee, you sit down, you say hello to everybody. Boom, right on your desk is an item. Hi, welcome to work. But I didn't plan on this. But this being so, what are you going to do? The ability to roll with what actually is happening is a core feature of being a leader. What is that?
Share.
Ah! All right, I'm gonna say something. The Slovenes didn't get that. They all said a chair. I went, come on. Picture. But I like talking about a chair. And I actually have a chair. I actually have a chair. I use this to illustrate the concept of dealing with change. Okay? And this is also a Buddhist concept. Look at this chair. Look at this chair. What is it made of? What is its most smallest part? Come on, you physicist. All right, he's saying something over there. You want to share with the class? You have any more chewing gum for the rest of us? It's made of atoms, right?
It's made of strings.
Atoms and strings, exactly. And the strings, you're a physicist? No, you just pretend.
I just look like.
You do look like a physicist. Could you explain quantum? Okay. So at its most basic level, it's atoms, electrons, neutrons, protons, and energy. And guess what? It's in motion, right? Right? If I come back in 100,000 years, will the chair be there? He knows. It'll be something else. We don't know what, but it'll be something else. And if I could magically remove the space between the atoms, between the electrons, the neutrons, and protons, it would be changed forever. It's in motion. It's held together by tension, by energy. And yet, I can sit my ass on it. And I don't fall down. Why is this so? And to me, that's a perfect business story. See, I'm a weird dude. Because businesses are constantly in motion, held together by kinetic energy, usually anxiety, and real fear and change. Who here has a brand new startup? Brand new. Do you have an office yet? You do? Good. What's it feel like walking into that office? Like a little bit exciting? A little bit of an imposter?
Maybe.
Like, it's just a big empty space with a couple of cheap chairs and a table. And if you're lucky, an internet connection that stays stable. Right? welcome to your business. You kind of have to pretend that if you sit your ass down, the chair will receive you. And that's hard. Because if we go quiet and we think about it, right, there's nothing to your business. There's just electrons, protons, neutrons, and some kinetic energy pulling all together. That's it. Everybody know who Seth Godin is? You should read his blog. Fred and I were the first investors to invest in Yo-Yo Dine. I've known Seth for 19 years. I would say I knew him when he had hair, but that's not true. He wrote a blog post recently. He said, but what if I fail? You will. This is what being human is. I was saying this afternoon too, in one of the interviews, what if we thought of failure as a scientist thinks of failure? Experiments. Experiments. Do we punish the scientist? No, I'm sorry. That experiment failed. Get out. Turn in your degree. Who studied one of the hard sciences like physics or chemistry, engineering, right? What do? Right? Failure. What? You try again? That's the secret to invention. That's the secret to creativity. I've changed this presentation now 6 times. I don't know what I'm going to do next. Is it a failure or a success? I don't know. For in a sense, the capacity to fail is much more important than any individual human achievement. It is that which makes the achievements possible. We are designed to fail. We're designed to fail because that's how we grow. Our greatest glory is not in never falling, but in rising every time we fall. How many times did Steve Jobs fail? Do you remember? He got fired from his own company because he was an ass. Because he drove away some of the best talent. And then he launched a business, Next. Remember the curves? Out of revenge. And it was failing. Except one engineer came up with this really neat use of this tool. He made a movie. Did you ever see the movie with the lamp? Which became Pixar. And when Apple was near bankruptcy, failure, gosh, he came back. You know this story, right? Called up his friend Bill Gates, humiliated, whom he was going to bury, and asked for a $250 million loan. And got it. And then went about and redefined history. What a loser. What a loser. Now, leave aside for a moment his very complex personal life. I don't know if he's a failure or a success. I don't even know if he was happy. But I'll take his achievements. It's not how we fall, it's how we rise. Thank you. Any thoughts come up to you guys from that presentation?
I will start. Guys are afraid, probably. Yeah, I mean, I think we could all relate to some of the points. I definitely could, so it was interesting to hear, to make yourself aware of some of the stuff that we're already having.
What occurred to you as it related to your own sense of fear of failure?
Sorry?
What occurred to you as it related to your own sense of failure or fears?
Well, I've been through that for the last 1 year. So there were some decisions that I was like really afraid to make during that time, and in the end, I just decided to go with it.
Can you tell us the story?
So I worked in a company actually with Daniel. He's my ex-boss, so I need to. No, so basically, I worked at the studio for 4 years, and after a while, I just wasn't. I felt like something was crouching me inside, and I knew that I needed to change something. And I went through that feeling of being over-attached to something because we worked together from basically beginnings, and I was really attached to the company and to the people, but I felt I need to become detached, and what did you say afterwards?
Non-attached.
Non-attached, exactly. So I just decided it's time to do some change, and we spoke, and we agreed on that, so I decided to move on and to start my own company.
And what's the company?
It's a digital agency, and
So you
also,
compete with these studios?
in a way, but
Cool.
we are in like different maybe niches.
Ah.
But actually we cooperated. So.
Good.
And also along the way I came up with the idea of a startup. So I also started working on that.
The startup is different than the studio?
Yeah.
The agency?
Yeah, it's different than the agency. It's like more like a social network kind of thing.
Why don't we get a little bit from Tom and Daniel?
Sure. So, what was the question?
So, why don't you tell us a little bit about your story, where you are, what you're doing?
Okay, so I'm Tom. This is my new name, right? I co-founded a software company with software development. It's called Infinum. Maybe 10 years ago or something like that, 9 years ago. I was 18, 19 at the time with my colleague Mate. They were there, and basically, I think we should have been afraid at that time when we did it, because we were really, really young. But we didn't know shit about anything, so we just kind of, we're going to start a company, yeah. So, like, what's the worst thing that could happen? Nothing. What do we have to lose? Nothing. So, let's do it. So, we probably should have been afraid more at that time, but weren't. And now it's a couple of years into the company, where we have around 40 people.
Right, you started a company at 18 and you now have 40 people?
Yeah. We started when we were at college, and we kind of did some work during college when we had graduated. Basically, we started to do it like more seriously, hire people, set up some sort of management structure, that sort of stuff.
Look, I thought I was going to get like a bunch of failures up here. These are good people.
Sorry about that.
How's the company going now?
It's going good. It's going great. I mean, when you mention failures, I remember that one situation, which is kind of my like fear of failure situation, and I know Mate remembers that one. I don't know how many people we had at the time, and we were like sitting in the office, and like we need to like pay the people their salaries. We just opened up the internet banking, and it was like, shit, we have no money. So a lot of the companies owed us, and we were like, they're like, you know how it is in Croatia, like we're gonna pay you like next week or the week after that, right? It's always next week or week after that. And we're like, the next week, and that's kind of a situation, because my biggest problem is that I have people depending on me, like all these people that work for you. You need to you're the guy that needs to get work, that needs to organize everything, and that's kind of the biggest, I would say, fear or problem that you have running a company. And you know, in Croatia, a lot of stuff, it's not about you, or like if you're good in management or if you're good at the stuff you do. It's a lot of bullshit happens here, like crime, corruption, poor bears, whatever. So you need to, there's a lot of these external like stuff that influence your work. So, yeah.
I love how the energy in the room goes up every time people talk about crime in here. Yeah, crime. It's really bad, huh?
Because
It's really bad?
bad.
It's not bad.
It's not bad?
You have no idea.
It's more like, it's not crime, you won't get robbed on the street, it's more like corruption.
It's corruption.
Yeah.
It is
It's not like Brooklyn.
but it's
So Brooklyn is like Dubrava here.
You want to step outside?
We have that, we also have the selling bricks. You know selling bricks?
Yeah. I got two bricks. So, I got so distracted by the whole Brooklyn. Daniel, why don't you tell us a little bit about your story?
Hi everybody. So I started also a business when I was 22, and I was also
22?
yeah older than
You got no problem with entrepreneurs here. I'm leaving.
no here really, but it was a huge problem for me because I was 22 and we were trying to make a serious business, you know, to sell some marketing stuff to real marketing managers in huge companies, and we had here a lot of problems because if you look at me, I'm looking still as a teenager, and when you talk with the marketing managers, it was a really tough one, but let's say we succeeded, and now 5 years later, 4.5, we have 60 employees, and we are growing very fast. We are opening some new offices, and I think now it's successful, but we had a lot of failures, and
What are your failures?
well, I have a lot of them, but I like to talk most about failures before the company.
What do you mean?
Because
Well,
it's
before,
easier.
before you launch this company?
Yeah. Because, for example, when I was in high school, I tried to make a first startup, and my first startup was selling used books for high school students. And the whole idea, our calculation, our business plan was, if we succeed, our revenue, not profit, revenue would be 70 euros. And for us, it was like the best possible idea, the best possible business, and so on. And if you take in consideration that maybe 10% is that we will succeed, and we were at the high school, so probably 1% would be that we will succeed, so this was a huge failure. We didn't do anything. But I think that from this idea we found five other ideas, and then we started a new project, which was one student portal, which was also a failure. We didn't do anything. But when we did this portal, we saw that we don't have money, we have to do something, we have to advertise this, we have to bring people to this website, and we found out about social media marketing, which nobody was doing, and this was like a huge topic here. And then we founded iStudio, and now we are successful. So I think that if you fail, you will learn so much, and you will find some new ideas, and then next time maybe you will be successful.
You know what you remind me of is David Karp. Do you guys know who David Karp is? Tumblr? You know the story of how Tumblr got first funded? Not started, but funded. So Tumblr was one of 5 projects that David was working on when he was 19. 5. When he met with Bijan Sabeh, as an investor in Boston, and Fred Wilson, my former partner, they said to him, this one thing, this is the thing you have to focus on. You have to shut down these other 4. And he fought them for almost 6 months. He didn't want to do that. But eventually he did focus on the one thing, like social media marketing. And you know what happened, Tumblr, right? Bought by Yahoo for $1 billion. Did you know that they were about 6 months away from collapse? They were out of cash. Failure? Success? I'll take that. I'll take that. So, what's the most important thing you've learned from your failures?
That it's only failure the amount of the time as you perceive it as a failure. And if you start perceiving it as a learning lesson, and if you start perceiving it as an opportunity to open something new, then it's not a failure anymore. Then it's something great actually, because it pushes you into another direction, which is probably most of the time something that is good. This is something that doesn't.
You really believe that?
Yeah.
Sure. Daniel?
Well, I think failure is short term, but success is probably long term. And that's my conclusion, but I like much more success.
Tom?
My biggest kind of takeaway is to just forget about it. So if you were to ask me like what are failures, I just asked the guys over there, and we just couldn't like remember. Like I know we had a billion of them, but just don't care. Just forget about it, because if you keep like hitting your head against the wall and like, oh, why did I spend so much money on this? Oh, no, I failed, blah blah blah, and it just doesn't work. It just gets on your psyche, right? So my biggest takeaway is just forget about it, go to the next thing, and just fun.
Do you think that that's a common belief among entrepreneurs here?
I think so, yeah, because if they mean the good ones, like, because if you wouldn't, if you don't think like that, it then just it eats away at you, right? All your failures, and you can't work like that, you can't live like that.
Ja sam nekad bio matematičar, pokušavao biti matematičar, si tek ono kad doktoriraš i dugo radiš onda matematiku jako puno učiš da bi se kvalificirao da budeš matematičar. Znači ti kad si doktorirao onda si tek stekao kvalifikaciju da budeš. Uglavnom ja sam negdje sa, ne znam, imao sam tu neku komercijalnu crtu. I onda kad je privatizacija bila u Hrvatskoj, nekom ludom sredinom sam sreo neke dečke i kao upisao se dionice. Iz 1992. godine, tad sam imao 26 godina, sam 66. godišnje, znači stari konj, za sve nas ovdje, ja upišem neke dionice kao. I to je to, i ništa radim ja na faksu dalje. I 96. 7. godine imao sam neko nasljedstvo, umro mi je bio otac i tako, i ja vidim da ja radim na fakultetu matematičkom, znači ono full ugodan posao, i dobro mi ide kao, i imam 4000 maraka na računu i to se nekako topi. Pitam se, je to život? I to je baš bilo pitanje, ne? I onda sam, kako sam ušao zavolio te dionice, a internet se otvorio kao koncept, onda je čovjek mogao pogledati ono na internetu što ima i da može biti bolji od svih ovih naših lokalnih kvazi financijaša, ne? I onda sam užasno zavolio te financije i tako sam počeo se baviti biznisima. Koliko sam godina? Pa tada sam imao 30 godina. A onda sam kao počeo neki startup koji je bio kao dobar, ali nije to bilo puno kruha. I onda sam počeo raditi u banci i tako dalje, penzioni fond, ali zapravo moja prava politička karijera je krenula sa 34-35 godina. Tako da, ali uvijek što je bilo, znači znam da sam došao kod ujaka, tada i pitao sam da li bi mi htio posuditi da kupim kompjuter i printer. Kao, čovjek mi nije htio dati. Kao, nemaš ti šanse, to su bili zaista problemi, to su bili moji početci, fakat su to bili početci. I onda sam, znači, a sad sam međuvremenu ljudi ne znaju koliko, ja sam recimo sam brojao, ja sam vjerojatno imao 12 poslovnih poduhvata, startupa ove ili one vrste, od kojih je pa skoro pola neuspješno, ili 3-4 baš full neuspješno, ali nije mi žao nijednog neuspjeha. I sad još uvijek ljudi mene vide kao investitor, znači ja de facto vremenski kad bi zbrojio, ispao sam kao venture capital fond, kad gledaš vremenu. Ali sam da ga rastegneš horizontalno biti u istom trenutku, ali sad imam prilično velike biznise koje, ne pričamo o njima, jako su dobri, ali sam investitor, znači na Zagrebačkoj burzi prvenstveno i tu opet imam taj jedan portfeljni dugoročni pristup.
Ali najpoznatiji ste po portalu Moj posao, gdje je zapravo bio nekako prvi pravi boom. Kako je krenula ta priča, kad je to krenulo i koliko je trajalo?
Pa kao inače slučajno, znači, ja se sjećam da sam htio napraviti neki financijski TZV portal, što god to bilo, mislim to riječu, prezirem u Hrvatskoj, to je ta riječ portale. I onda sam tražio prijatelja koga sam bio upoznat na fakultetu, on je poslije otišao, to je jedan naših Ante, Ruševljan. No, on je jedan od divova, on je informatičan, on je fakat jak. I njega sam upoznao na drugoj godini fakulteta, jer mi je riješio neke probleme i poslije sam ga angažirao, ja sam se, znači, na fakultetu sam se bavio na prvoj godini time da razvalim kockarnice, ne? I onda sam pokušao napraviti strategiju za blackjack, jer sam skužio da to jedino možeš zapravo algoritamski nešto napraviti. I onda sam noćima igrao sam sa sobom na strategije koje sam izračunao, dokažem onim prednjim varijantama, da mi je Ruš to isprogramirao i onda to puno lakše sam to radio. I onda sam se sjetio Ruša kad sam taj financijski portal, rekao sam Ruš, čuj ti sad, a on je bio napravio čitav software za Zagrebačku burzu. I on je rekao, čuj Neno, ajmo mi nešto jednostavnije za probu, kao ono, test. Šta? Pa ono job site, kao to nema u Hrvatskoj. Pa daj, ja brat, kao, neće, on ne može, on te nju bez veze, ovako, ne. Onda, uvijek su me strašno varali biznisima, jer sam ja uvijek otvoreno govorio svima ideje i išao na skroz nove stvari koje su naizgled lako kopirale. Samo ti brzo trčiš, te nikad ne može stići, ali ti može puno podmetati, tak fajn, ne. Onda su me neki dečki izvarali za novce, dao sam prilično, onda na koncu ručno preuzeo i tako je moj posao krenuo, ne.
Ali u početku je sve išlo na vas, tako? Znači to je 24 sata posao, dođete kući, umorni ste, treba pas, želite uplatiti televiziju, ništa se zanima i kažeš jedna poljubiva, šta vam?
Onda se poslije.
Ali poljubi me ok, ali da kažem, promijeniti pelene djetetu...
Ne, super je zato kad počeo raditi, recimo, od Sulejmana, da dođe Sulejman, dođete kući i zbrišete u drugu sobu.
Recimo Tomislav, je tako care? Ti bi kada narasteš htio biti informatički. Volio bi evo, jako konkretan savjet za Tomislava, općenito sve nas ovdje, prije što nastavim dalje sam možda još po plastičnim pitanjima, zato stay tuned. Što je Tomislav sad? Evo on je sad u zamahu, sve više manje pići, prošla neka faza upside downova, sad je pići fina situacija. Što mu reći o Tomislav, što te čeka sutra?
Pa, Tomislav ima firmu koja prilično sliči našoj filozofiji razvoja firme. Znači, mi smo krenuli kao custom development firma koja je puno radila razvoja softvera, mi zapravo i danas jesmo tvornice softvera, imamo preko 350-400 programera, što Java, što .NET, što ovo, što ono. Znači, u tom smislu, ono što možda njemu, koliko vidimo, je počeo jako brzo rasti, znači ima prvo problem sa prebrzim možda rastom. Znači, to je jedan problema. Pitanje je da li će moći, znači, da taj rast hendla, znači, on će doći sad brzo na 50, 60, 100 ljudi, morat će se promijeniti filozofija, on ima, sam bi rekao, 3-4 dobra frenda, sve to još na prijateljskoj razini, svi oni su zajedno, svi se poznaju, svi idu kući jedni drugima, ako pogledate njihove blog, slike, svi su frendovi i tako dalje, i onda kako to sve skupa raste, neizbježno se zapravo gubi to što je lijepo i ovo, i morate na neki način uvijek sad pokušati sačuvati dovoljno dobro da sačuvate tu company kulturu zbog koje ste to stvorili, a s druge strane postoje neka pravila koja ne možete izbjeći kod tih velikih korporacija kojima se mi čudimo, recimo, ali na koncu shvatite da je to nužno. Znači, mi smo se neki dan čudili kad odete gore, recimo u Raku, Microsoft i ovo, postoji kako to bez veze nikad ne bio tamo i tako dalje, a onda shvatite kako raste da zapravo je to neka od zakonitosti. Mi ne možemo od toga puno pobjeći i jedno što možemo se truditi zapravo zadržimo nekakvu, recimo, tu razinu minimalnu za što mi nemam dobre riječi te company kulture. I mislim da su to glavni izazov s kojim će se Tomislav susresti. Sad kad ostanete bez posla, Tomislav, mogu bi savjetu. Da je softverski biznis ključna stvar da morate dobro znati raditi sa ljudima. Znači, jer je zapravo softver danas i vjerojatno u buduće uvijek će stvarati ljudi. Vulgarno rečeno, ljudi su zapravo strojevi za proizvodnju softvera i ako krenete baviti softverom morate zapravo dobro znati raditi sa ljudima. Gotovo znajte na umu da su to sve ljudi koji su završili fakultet, koji su svi jako pametni i koji na neki način imaju drugačiji način razmišljanja i to je zapravo, tu prolazite ili padate u početku. Poslije kad narastete na tisuće ljudi, onda se s neki način te stvari reguliraju, dobijete HR menadžera i sve te skupe stvari što dolaze sa time, ali znajte da u početku svaki poduzetnik normalno pokušava štediti na infrastrukturi. Znači svi ste programeri i svi samo radite posao. Znači pokušavate da imate što manje financista i svega to što ide, što mi smatramo da zapravo su da su zapravo trošak, ali zapravo to i nije trošak, poslije shvatite.
Je li novac glavni motivator u cijeloj priči?
Novac? Pa mislim da na novac, to je Tomislav rekao, da novac ne smijete nikad misliti. Znači, novac je zapravo nešto što je, zapravo ne smije biti cilj. Novac zapravo pokazuje, kao semafor, kad igrate tenis, znači novac pokazuje koliko ste uspješni. Ako vidite na dobiti, na to, onda zapravo grešite jer ćete vrlo brzo shvatiti da ste pogledali, da će se otići k vragu. Znači, pustite novac sa strane, dobro radite, a novac će pokazati i koliko dobro radite.
Ja da pokušam naći neki fail, ja to ne mogu. Mislim, evo, Luka, sve gledam, trudim se, ali je fair konferenci, ali imamo čovjeka koji je ipak uspio sad izvući neki fail, ili ne želite mi reći?
Ne, pazite.
Ajmo sad konkretno, gdje je bilo neka opaka greška iz koje ste se uspjeli izvući, očigledno jeste?
Pazite, ima tu više problema. Znači, prvo, jako je bitno da ima puno grešaka, ali jako je dobro da je omjer grešaka i dobrih odnosa i pozitivno. Znači, sigurno sam donio vjerojatno puno više dobrih odluka od loših, znači za početak. Drugo pitanje je definicije, šta je greška. Često puta, zapravo, ako vi se postavite nerealan cilj, znači sad ne znam, evo, ko što čitate, startup tvrtka, za 2 godine idemo u Europu, u Ameriku, zaradit ću milijone, obično u jutarnjem zarađujem milijone, naslov i tako dalje. To je ono, ako nema milijona, ne valja ništa. U tom smislu sigurno ćete za godinu dana, 2 reći, ovo, pa nisam uspio i ovo. Ako vi postavite neki realan cilj koji je dosegljiv, koji neki način je ono što onda smanjite vjerojatnost greške i onda neki način to skupo možda jedno. Znači, u biti, povijest određuje što je greška i to je zapravo suština i često puta sam ja mislio da je nešto jako dobro, onda sam nakon par godina shvatio da je pogrešno ili obratno. Recimo, jedna od velikih stvari gdje smo potrošili jako puno novaca, ali sad sve će isto propali je, ja sam rekao, kad 92. smo počeli biznis, svi su radili software, to se zvala financijski software, glavna knjiga, saldo konta i tako dalje, i ja sam rekao, pa to svi rade, to je glupo, mi to nećemo raditi, jer to je velika konkurencija, mi smo počeli raditi, ne znam, software za osiguranje i nešto drugo smo se skupa radili, i onda sam negdje 2000 rekao, joj, pa možda smo mi ipak pogriješili, idemo mi napraviti vlastiti ERP. I onda smo mi krenuli, odvojili 10 ljudi, u doba to je bila velika investicija, i krenuli u razvoj vlastitog ERP-a. I negdje 2003. to je ta godina kad je bilo najgore, smo shvatili da smo zaista pogriješili, da zapravo nismo napravili ništa spektakularno dobro, da zapravo dolazi vrijeme svjetskih ERP-ova, da zapravo imati vlastiti ERP više nije neka fora, i tako dalje, i tako dalje. I jednostavno sve to skupa smo bacili u vjetar i nastavili sa nekim drugim pravcem razvoja.
Ok, bilo prošlo, možemo se idemo dalje.
Idemo dalje, da.